Hey all, it's Revel. My notes are over here on my laptop, so when you see me look over here, I'm looking at my notes. Okay, the name of this episode was Kool-aid, and I guess I should explain a little bit why I called it Kool-aid. Current events, I suppose. Although not so current, we're going to go back to 1970 something, 1978. First thing I remember of 1978, sitting at my friend Dan's house, we're watching the TV, and the news is that the Pope has died. And then the news is there's a new Pope been elected. It was like 29 days. So the Pope is elected. He takes the name John Paul II. And like 32 days later, he dies. And there's a whole bunch of conspiracy theories about his death. But his death was kind of suspicious, and since they never do an autopsy on a pope when he dies, body, I don't even know if they embalm them. Coffin, ceremony, new pope. Not long after that, in November of 1978, look, the 18th of November 1978, sitting at my friend Dan's house again, looking at TV, his dad's over there. We're just watching TV in the rec room in the basement of his house. And we suddenly get these really horrible images of something strange happening in South America, in Ghana. A congressman has been shot, some reporters have been shot, maybe even a congresswoman. Something strange has gone on there. And as the news develops, we discover that a religious sect, the People's Temple, run by one James Jones, big dark aviator sunglasses, kind of pasty skin, Hitler-esque hairdo. Well, it turns out that he has ordered his followers, 950 of them, to kill themselves. They're going to heaven. The United States government is after them. They're all paranoid, but they've got to get to heaven, and the fast way to get to heaven is to die. And the way they're going to die is they're going to kill themselves, and the way they're going to kill themselves is to drink poisoned Kool-aid. Well, we all know the story. The babies were fed some kind of cyanide drink first with large syringes. Most of the members of the cult simply drank the Kool-aid, and some people said it wasn't Kool-aid, it was actually Fresh Aid, well, some other off-brand mark. But in the end, we stuck with Kool-aid. Everybody knows what Kool-aid is. Hey, hey, hey! They all drank this Kool-aid because they believed what their leader was telling them they should do. It's like the Heaven's Gate sect or cult who, I don't remember how they all killed themselves. They were in bunk beds in some suburban house or something like that. But the idea is when we drink the Kool-Aid, thanks to James Jones and the People's Temple in Ghana, South Africa, we're completely suspending our disbelief and accepting the beliefs of whoever is speaking to us, whoever has managed to get us to suspend our disbelief. So, do we all do that? Well, I'm going to talk about myself and how I've drunk several different flavors of Kool-Aid. You all remember Kool-Aid when we were kids? I mean, my mom used a lot of Kool-Aid. I remember there was a whole period of time when she lowered the amount of sugar that she put in the Kool-Aid. And if you didn't put enough sugar with that envelope of colored powder, you could taste like a raspy, dry flavor of the chemicals that they used to give actually the aroma of whatever the flavor was. My favorite was strawberry. Orange wasn't bad, but those weren't really fruit flavors. They were like these aromas. Drinking the Kool-Aid. Well, one of the first, besides all of the Kool-Aid that they give you as a kid, Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy, all of that kind of Kool-Aid that we end up drinking. One of the first times that I, as an adult, drank the Kool-Aid was from a book called Sugar Blues. It was written by one William Duffy, and it was released in 1975. It came into my hands in 1982, just when I had moved in with my friend Stephen. We both read the book. It had been lent to us by a lesbian couple that we knew in that Midwestern town. And one of the strangest parts of this Kool-Aid was the idea that we would never have to use toilet paper anymore. Now, why? The idea of the book was, and it's probably scientifically true, when you eat sugar, your blood sugar goes up very rapidly, your pancreas gets confused and shoots out a lot of insulin to deal with this jump in sugar intake. And what it does is it cleans your blood almost completely of all sugar in it, and so you go to the other side of sugar levels and you feel depressed, and from that the idea of sugar blues. And this guy, what was his name again? William Duffy, suggested at one point in his book that if you stop intaking sugar, eat a healthy fiber-filled diet, you won't have to use toilet paper anymore, so you'll save money, not only on the sugar that you're buying or the processed foods that contain sugar, which are usually more expensive than raw foods that you prepare yourself. You'd stop using toilet paper. So Stephen and I went through a lot of dietary changes based on the information in this book, and one of the biggest one was finding sugar in food package labeling. Now, up to then, I hadn't done a lot of reading of food package labels, and it was a good suggestion from this guy to read the labels of what you are consuming. So we started reading the labels of everything we were purchasing, and we stopped buying anything that contained sugar. Fast forward a few weeks, and we're driving up to Chi-Town to visit his parents. Now, I didn't like Stephen's parents very much, so anything I say about them isn't going to be too attractive. But when we arrive, we go in the front door of his family home, and his mother, who had just come in from the back door, approached us with a little basket full of fruit in her hand. Now, his mother was a very short woman, stocky, I'll be generous, she was just stocky. She had no chin, and she held this basket of fruit out to us and said, "Raspberries?" She had just harvested some raspberries from the raspberry bush in the back garden. That became a meme for Stephen and I. Raspberries? Zombie of his mother. Well, the next day they had a barbecue, and so Stephen's dad was there, his mother, his brother, I think his sister-in-law, his brother's wife, and we're all sitting around the table and barbecue. Well, that means that there's barbecue, there's hot dogs, there's hamburgers. Stephen and I had stopped eating meat, but it was a barbecue at his family home, so we did have some barbecue stuff. And when it came time to put the hot dog in a bun, well, I grabbed the package of buns and I turned it over and I read the label. And while I'm reading the label, his father, who was this stocky guy with the military crew cut and kind of a Midwestern Archie Bunker attitude, he suddenly says, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm reading the label to see if there's any sugar in these buns." And he suddenly becomes violent and shouts at me, "Sugar, schmugger, eat the goddamn bun!" Which I did, but that became another meme of Stephen and my sugar, schmugger, eat the goddamn bun. Yeah. But that was a Kool-Aid that I had drank. The whole sugar thing. If I eat sugar, I will become ill. So I must stop eating sugar. And all of the construct that went around the very simple idea of stop eating processed foods or foods processed with sugar. Okay? That's what I mean. That's what I think everybody means when we're talking about drinking the Kool-Aid. We're talking about some base ideas, like the only way to get to heaven is through my teachings. That trip to heaven will be in a spaceship, and in order to get on that spaceship, we must all commit suicide. That wasn't James Jones, that was the other guy, the Heaven's Gate guy. James Jones was simply drink this Kool-Aid because the American government is coming to imprison us all, and this is our only escape, our only way out of this worldly suffering and into heavenly bliss, I suppose. Now, another Kool-Aid that I got dragged into, and now this drags us into the internet times, was double. One was 9/11 conspiracy videos. This is a YouTube conspiracy. 9/11 was an inside job. Probably the most significant images in these videos are the little puffs of smoke coming out of the corners of the World Trade Center just before it collapsed, as if they were demolition explosions. Could be, looked like it. And another one was a strange flashing light against the glass of the tower when the second jet approached to enter the building. Well, there was like this flash of light, a reflection. That could have been because it was some kind of missile, directed missile, disguised to be a plane. The plane itself had no markings, no logo type. It didn't say American Airlines or any of that kind of stuff on the side. And it could have simply been one of the strobe lights that all airplanes of this size have that make them visible up in the sky. I swallowed a lot of that conspiracy type idea. I was already suspicious of the whole thing, the pancake falling, the convenience of this happening like a false flag event. In the end, I don't know. One way or another, I don't subscribe to any of the conspiracy theories, and I don't totally accept the official reports on what happened. It just happened, and I watched it happen live. Okay? I think I'll talk about this in another episode. But anyway, another was a series of videos against psychiatry and psychology, and specifically against I'm going to read it here, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. I think it's the DMM or DSMMD. It's this thick book that describes mental disorders. And it's revised every, I don't know how often, every 5 years, every 10 years. The latest one I could find was 2014, so maybe it's up for a revision. This is the book that defined homosexuality, for example, as some kind of mental disease, and then decades later removed that mental disease qualification to homosexuality, or that changed the definition of the split personality to some other thing. Okay, but it's the basic book that describes all these strange things that go on in our minds and that are considered outside of the norm. So these videos really attacked this book, and I think it's attackable. I mean, well, it's kind of scientific, but it's also kind of subjective. The whole homosexuality thing really ties down the idea that this is whatever is fashionable at the time of the revision going on. In any case, it also went into some of the stranger practices in psychiatry and psychology, of course, lobotomies, electric shock therapies, the whole concept of a mental institute or an insane asylum or a madhouse. The presentation was convincing enough to kind of, how would I say, meld into several doubts that I personally had about the entire psychology and especially psychiatric practice or science, especially psychiatry, because of the tendency to try to find a chemical answer to an imbalance in the brain chemistry through drugs in order to cure people. In the end, give them a pill, let's see if they calm down, or stick on an ice pick in their eye and stir around in there and see if they calm down. When I found out that all of these videos were made by the Church of Scientology, yeah, the Tom Cruise and who else? John Travolta, that strange sect that sit with cylindric electrodes in their hands and confess their deep, dark secrets to see if the little scale view meter jumps up or down and they get onto the next level of super consciousness. Well, those were the people who had sponsored and created these videos, and that made me think, well, are these videos valid? Is this a valid way to look at psychiatry and psychology? And that was another Kool-Aid that suddenly didn't taste as good after having drunk it as it did when I began drinking it. So I'm watching this interview with Jesse Wells, a folk singer that I've talked about in other episodes, and I'll leave some links to my favorite songs of his in the description. Well, this Jesse Jesse Wells, who seems to have come out of the woodwork, out of nowhere, and now is very popular and is even receiving his own criticism for his latest song about that Charlie Kirk guy, goes on the Joe Rogan show. Okay, Joe Rogan, we all know who he is. My opinion of him, incredibly intelligent, loquace man who simply rides to fame on strange conspiracy theories. He could have rode to fame on anything else. He simply chose the conspiracy theories and scandalous political content road, and well, that made him very popular. He's a very popular podcaster. Don't watch anything that he does, but when I saw that Jesse Wells had done this interview, I thought it would be interesting to watch it through and get a little bit better idea not only of Joe Rogan, but why Jesse Wells, a musician that I was learning to respect, had gone on his show. It reflects nothing on Jesse Wells or anyone else who has been on the Joe Rogan show. A lot of people have gone on the Joe Rogan show. And one thing you have to give to Joe Rogan is that he does bother to interview, well, he interviews a lot of weirdos, but he also interviews people who are less weirdos. Jesse Wells is a little weird, I think. It's weird that during this interview, Joe Rogan throws out this odd vaccine comment, anti-vax comment, anti-COVID vax comment, something about the COVID vaccine killing more people than it saved or something like that. I'm not sure, but he just kind of throws it out of the middle of what seemed to be an absolutely normal conversation.
This is AI over you. AI. In the immediate aftermath of the AI, by the way, that still thinks the COVID vaccine saved millions of lives. In the immediate...
Demonstrating that Joe Rogan sells the idea that the COVID vaccine is somehow dangerous or somehow not useful, or somehow it's some kind of deep state conspiracy to control our minds, or those nano robots they talked about when the vaccine first came out. Was Joe Rogan giving us a sip of his Kool-Aid? Of course he was. I mean, the people who listen to Joe Rogan religiously are probably of the same opinion about the COVID vaccine. So when he throws out that little sip of Kool-Aid, those people drink it up quickly. They have a straw ready. A plastic straw ready. A paper straws. What are they talking about? When I was a kid, there were paper straws everywhere. They were covered with wax so that they wouldn't dissolve with whatever drink. I remember paper straws when I was a kid at the A&W drive-in, drinking root beer floats with paper straws. I don't see anything wrong with paper straws. Plastic straws are much better, but they do contaminate a lot. Microplastics everywhere. Well, I don't remember exactly, but there's another YouTuber, TikToker, influencer. She's kind of interesting. She's called the Permaculture or something like that. She knits, generally tries to speak in a reasonable fashion about current events. So she's got a lot of videos, nearly daily she has some video talking about this or that. Since I'm every 2 weeks, I can never be on top of current events. I mentioned Charlie Kirk. That's a current event that just happened, but this video is going out next Monday, so that may have died down, though the Jimmy Kimmel thingy going on, not good for free speech. I wonder if I should actually say these names in this video. Will I be canceled? Doubt it. In any case, the permaculture lady also made some strange offering of her own Kool-Aid about COVID vaccines, but I can't remember exactly the specific reference to tell you what it was, but I can say that it was done in the same fashion, just casual comment in the middle of some other theme or some other thing that made me think, why is she offering me this sip of Kool-Aid? I'm already on your side, permaculture lady, so giving me Kool-Aid doesn't help. It makes me suspicious. Are we just naturally Kool-Aid drinkers? Are we just naturally open to a basic truth or a basic concept being given to us and then accept the aroma flavored drink with too much sugar or too little if my mom's making it? whenever this person supports whatever this idea is that kind of melds into our current way of thinking, or our current doubts, or our current questioning, self-questioning, quest, whatever, I'm kind of looking for my own Kool-Aid that I think is better flavored, better tasting. You might notice it by the images that I've surrounded this video with. I've been drinking the Kool-Aid of leaving your garden alone, not digging up your garden, not cleaning it up. I'm going to leave my garden, well, a little bit like permaculture, but not really permaculture. It doesn't come from the permaculture lady. Actually, it comes from some other guy who is teaching farmers how to leave their pastures alone, not use pesticides, not use any aggressive mechanical action on the ground, try to let the ground recover, become spongy, this kind of thing. He's got 5 or 6 different farms where he's helping these farmers do this. It's very interesting how the farmers talk about how their neighbors look at them like they're a little bit weird because they're not out there with their John Deere tractor with the GPS that they have to pay for every year, plowing the ground, turning it over, putting seeds on the ground. They're letting their cows wander about. They're moving them from pasture to pasture before the cows have eaten all the grass. The grass is growing up to their armpits. One guy in Arizona talking about walking through his pasture and his pants getting wet to the knees because of the dew. People saying dew in Arizona in the summertime? Yep, he's got dew in the grass in his pastures in Arizona in the summertime. So there's a lot of interesting stuff in this brand of Kool-Aid that I'm going to try to apply to my own vegetable garden for the next season. Try to reduce the amount of work that I have to do in the vegetable garden and improve the soil structure and overall let things grow. Let's see how nature does it. Again, related to permaculture, but the permaculture lady is not the one giving me the ideas. I expect this new Kool-Aid, which is not related to Donald Trump, which is not related to tariffs and democracy and genocide and all these other things that are just poisoning our Kool-Aid these days. You just can't look at the television anymore. You have to scroll away from things in the YouTube algorithm. I'm hoping that this Kool-Aid is the one that will keep me peaceful and happy and moving forward with optimism in the next few months or weeks or years of my life. This Kool-Aid doesn't need sugar. Or maybe it does a little bit. Bah, sugar. Drink the goddamn Kool-Aid. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, listen, like, share. What else? Go check out the links that I put in the description. And little else until about a fortnight from now when I'll talk about something else and edit it heavily. Cheers.
Listen, like, subscribe, and share. You're listening to Radio Revel.